me something, Uncle Money?
Welcome to another episode of Practice Prosperity. We have an exciting guest today. We're going to talk about something timely, something that people are actually dealing with. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. We're going to talk about financial insecurity when it comes to operating your household and how AI is affecting how our children develop. So I think this is going to be a fun episode. And of course, we're going to talk about how Lisa has grew her business and grew to the point where she is today. And she's going to provide us with some tips, some know-hows, what she's been through in her experiences that I think is going to be valuable. So thank you for joining us very much, Lisa Ibekwe.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
If you don't mind introducing yourself, your practice, and the type of clients that you serve.
So again, hi, everybody. I am Lisa Ibekwe. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Georgia and a number of other states. I am the owner of the Comfy Place. We're a mental behavioral health practice out here in Georgia. And then we serve across the lifespan. So we cover from the littles, like coming out the womb, to, dang near in the grave. We got you covered. So families, adults, kids, teens, you name it.
I love that. So, and we're going to pretty much talk about the intersection of all these things. So what's happening now, they call it the K-shaped economy, meaning some folks are doing well, some people are doing so-so, and there's a lot of people not doing so well. And it's kind of a quiet place. One of the questions I want to start off with, what happens when there is financial insecurity in the household due to a loss of a job or inability to find work?
Ooh, so I want to say from the mental health perspective, we tend to see a lot more mental health issues pop up. You'll see more anxiety, you'll see some depression, a lot more anger being displayed. Sometimes it can lead to domestic violence, other things like that, because everyone's on edge. They're not sure how they're going to make it. But outside of that, just financial instability is a scary place to be in because bills are still due. They got to be paid, but there's no money coming in to pay them. So when we see this stuff happening in the community, not just the person that's been laid off or the person that's had their hours cut back or just the job is changing, it's moving to AI and they're being downsized, it impacts the kids in the home too, because they're watching everyone react to what's happening and they don't understand what this means. They're just seeing the aftermath of, the decisions, the impact, if that makes sense.
Me growing up in my household, I knew when things were tight. I knew when money was tight because behaviors change, tendencies change, all those things. Is it even possible to hide financial struggles from your child? You hear the term all the time, my child struggles for nothing, even though I may take an L. But that isn't necessarily the healthiest approach, I assume. What are your thoughts on that?
So oftentimes I see with parents that they have this thing about not wanting to talk to the kids about it because they're like they won't understand. They just don't get it. At the end of the day, we're providing for them, so it is what it is. But the reality is kids see and feel everything that's happening. They just don't have the language to go with it, like to understand it. So what we tell folks is you can be honest and transparent with your kids and come up with a plan as a family in terms of how that looks. Because if I'm a kid that, has the newest iPhone, I got the newest J's, and then all of a sudden you serving me bologna on white bread, I want to know where we going next. Are the lights going to be cut off? Are we going to be homeless? But we also have families that are on living paycheck to paycheck to the extent that the possibility of being homeless is literally at their door. So it's this reality of if you talk your kids through the process and include them as part of the decision makers, like some families that do they do like the yearly goals and they have the kids say, what are your goals? What are your financial goals? What are your personal goals? When your kids are involved in the process, they're willing to help you as you are aiming to accomplish things. So now it's not things are getting tight, mom's not buying all the gifts, or okay, we just get one thing for Christmas. It's like, okay, mom's saving because we got to do this thing, and I may not understand how that looks, but because I'm part of the process, I don't feel parentified, but I feel like I can help in this way.
I think that makes sense. So let's talk about a child. They're used to playing AAU sports. They're used to going out to eat to a nice restaurant. Kids are eating sushi now. How about that? All these things that they're used to participating in, and now the parent has to come to the child and say, "Hey, this is not going to happen any longer at the rate for this period of time." What are some healthy ways you believe a parent can have that conversation to limit? It's going to be something going on within the child, but how to limit that?
I think to offset any negative responses from kids, you kind of have to show them because kids, yes, language is great, and a lot of times people they talk, but when you think about a child who's still developing, if you only communicate through language, they can't really see it. Sometimes they can't really understand the bigger picture. So I would almost say make it fun, make it like a game. Like as a child therapist, like if I want a kid to learn something, I'm gonna turn it into something fun. This is why Coco Melon and Doc McStuffins are so popular, right? Because they've mastered how to speak child. Bring your kid to the table and on a board, map everything out. Like, hey, that McDonald's Happy Meal that you like us getting after school every day adds up. Now, imagine if we didn't get that every day and maybe we made it a special family outing on a weekend. Now they see the cost, they see what it turns into. And when they're part of the process because they're working towards a goal as a family, it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like I'm excited to achieve this. And the next thing you know, the little one's trying to save their own money and add it to the pot and see what they can do. And it's exciting. And with a lot of kids not being trained, and you're a financial person, so I'm sure you see this a lot of kids not being trained on how to save, how to, like not spend on the newest thing coming out, like not falling into that kind of spending trap. When they see what they're working towards and they save the money and they're actually learning how to invest and do those things, you're setting them up better compared to if it's like, we just need to cut corners at this time. We're not going to give you this thing. And then they just sit it with that.
So, let's talk honest talk. So the parent probably has a natural tendency, because I'm a financial planner, I see this, to put their head in the sand when financial trouble comes. What we're requesting, and I 100% agree it should be done, is almost an extra layer of work, communication. You mentioned gamification of the process. How does an individual get from, I want to put my head in the sand and pretend like this is not happening, to actually engaging in it with themselves and also taking the step of engaging it with their child? Because that takes some extraness to do that.
True. It takes energy. To be honest, it's really like they have to be able to move from survival mode into something else. Like I'm not even going to call it thriving, because when you've lost your job and you are the breadwinner for your family, you're literally in survival mode. You're not thinking about, oh, I got the newest J's or the iPhone, or, oh, like we can go on this vacation. You're thinking, how do I make sure that I have another check coming in after my last one? How do I make sure that my kids can still go to school and not have to repeat clothes, or like, how do I keep their lunches coming? It's a lot of, I'm just trying to meet the basic needs compared to, okay, I have the time to sit down and think through a lot of stuff. So when people experience financial instability, their brain goes into survival mode and all they're thinking about is the next thing that's going to keep them going. Versus if we say, okay, yes, this is panic. Panic for a few seconds if you need to. Get it out of your system, but don't get stuck. Pull your head out of it and then start strategizing. So the strategy piece is, I sometimes think, where people get lost because they say, what options do we have if it's not working? The jobs are not coming. They feel discouraged. They get depressed. Compared to if they say, you know what can we do as a unit? And if that's leaning on the people that we have in our circle, if that is continuing to look for new opportunities, what can we do to like step out on faith and know that we could do it? Can I share this one story thing with you, that because it popped into my head because I saw it recently? And I'm gonna give the super short version of it. I saw this on social media somewhere where it was Michael B. Jordan, as fine as he is. Michael B. Jordan was talking about before he became the man we knew today, how he was in LA broke, like on his last little bit of savings. And the clip was saying how he had to make the decision to either stay there and map out these next 3 months of the savings that he had, or go back home to Jersey and just, pick up a regular job and go from there. And he stepped out on faith and he mastered using those last 3 months of savings, and then the opportunities came. I say this because as we're talking about financial instability, a lot of that is scary. And people are thinking about, what am I going to do to make sure I can pay the bills, because they're stacking up. If folks shift from, I'm just trying to survive this, to, how can I leverage this? Maybe that business I had on my heart, this is the moment to do it, right? To put some energy into that. Maybe a skill that I hadn't used because my 9 to 5 was really like a 12-hour shift, 7 days a week, was eating up my time. Now I have some time to put energy into that. Because if we still work towards paying the bills, but we also put energy towards what we're called to do, it actually opens doors for us that maybe we didn't always realize we did.
I think that's powerful. I agree 100%. Change is good, and it also brings different opportunities. And I think as a society, we need to question how stable jobs are to the point where we give them so much control over our feelings. I think that's something to think about. Now, when we talk about people not having jobs, the thing that comes up in society is AI. And AI, as business owners, we can't go a day without an email about a new seminar on how to use AI and all those different things. And we want to give our kids kind of a leg up when it comes to technology. We don't want them to fall behind. We'll fall behind, but we definitely don't want them to fall behind. But there's some negatives to overexposure to AI, similar overexposure to social media. So what do you think about exposing our kids to AI and the pros and cons of that?
So I want to say it's a mixed bag. Part of the reason I say that is because like I don't want to date myself. Like I ain't that old, but I'm also older than a lot of the new ones coming out. And I remember MySpace, right, where we was out here coding before we even knew what coding was, and we were building our own little personal websites, right? Like it's funny because back in the day of dial-up, you had to learn to be patient because when it was trying to connect to the internet, you didn't have a choice. When we were in the age of MySpace and we had to learn how to code to use the program, it was something that challenged us but also taught us. Now granted, AI, the way it's being developed today, everything moves so fast. So if parents and kids are not mindful of how they use it, you can get sucked into it in a way that is detrimental. Not out This is completely outside of the damage that it does cause, because yes, there are good things that AI has done for us, that's great. But if we say, okay, we know the damage that it causes externally with the water sources, and then just brain development, how it impacts our brain when we use it too frequently. But the idea here is kids learning how to use AI to master a new skill, learning how to code, learning about items, things that back in the day Wikipedia would have been what taught us, or we would have had to go to the library to research. Having that at their fingertips is great, but having a personified version of a person through your AI to where now you're dating them, they're your best friends, like you're sharing too much, that's not okay. So I say this for parents because we have to be mindful about just how much access our youth are having to AI. Because yes, it does change the brain in terms of how like it develops. It actually shifts that. But then two, if you are not regulating, they can end up on the side of AI that is leading them to commit suicide, right? That's leading them into mental health diagnoses that at this point we don't even have a name for yet because it's just starting to come up. People who are in love with their AIs, or their AIs are promoting them engaging in certain behaviors that could be, what we would typically say psychotic in some ways. And I know Oprah recently did a whole talk about it where she had some people and she interviewed them. But as a parent, more kids are using it and more kids are getting better at being secretive with it. So it's your job to be mindful of like, yeah, my kid says they're not using it, but are you sure it's not on their phone or on their device under some type of hidden system? Because everything is popping up. It used to be ChatGPT, now it's Claude. And then it's going to be something else. And all these different systems have the ability to do even more. So if we don't monitor it, if we don't regulate it as humans, your kids are going to be learning about things that they shouldn't even know about. They're going to be turning to AI for relationships and bonding and attunement that a human is supposed to provide. And because AI is X's and O's, once it falls into that side of the world, the atmosphere, it's a lot harder to pull them back out. So I say that, and then I can't remember if you asked this piece or not, but like for business owners, like the positive side of it is just what we can develop and do. Like people who are developing programs that are helping us beat barriers that used to exist, making us to be more efficient. Like I don't mind AI checking my email. If it means that I can come into 10,000 less emails in my inbox, do your thing. But I'd hate to see it then replace humans who then need the jobs to keep their families fed, because sadly, that's some of where it seems like things are going.
I would say over the past 2 years, AI, the chatbots, they've become more pleasant, more enjoyable to use. They
Mhm.
encourage you more. They're like, "Hey, great idea," and I'm like, That's not what I'm
They
here
talk
for."
like us.
And they pull you in, and to the point where now they're asking suggestive next prompts. So much so you could be on the chat box for one question for 30 minutes.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yes. ChatGPT will have you in a chokehold. You're like, wait, why did you give me five different ideas for the one thing that I asked you for? And now you don't got five different business plans for businesses that you ain't ready to start yet, even if they are pretty good business ideas. It'll have you in a chokehold. Similar to social media. Like you don't know where all the time went.
and this is a pseudo finance show, and you got to think of the haves and the haves nots. The haves are reducing the screen time of their kids. They're in special groups, special schools. I've heard some schools actually requesting a reduction in computer and technology use, where other schools are making sure their kid carries around a tablet and laptop all day because they have seen studies that IQ has actually gone down with screen times going up.
Oh yeah.
So I just, one thing is there is a haves and have-nots and different approach to this thing that people may want to look into.
I'd like to follow that. I know that I saw another thing on social media where they were talking about an Irish, a community in it was either Ireland or Scotland, that after COVID they limited like phone use, limited social media. We already know in some Asian countries social media is regulated in comparison to how it is here. And I'm like, well, now with all the things that are happening with people wanting to sue because of what their kids have had access to, I tell parents, you are your child's first safety net. You are their first teacher, you are their first friend, their mentor, their everything. And whether you're the parent or the caregiver or whatever role you play in the child's life, you are their first, right? So if you are not present, all these external stimuluses, this external stimuli is going to pull them in. It's like moths to a flame. So when I've, at least in the therapy room, when I've encountered kids that are coming in and like, they're addicted to something or the parents are having issues with communication, a lot of times at the root of it was this missing communication, this missing attention, the missing understanding side of it. Where if mom and dad just heard me out, stopped,
Mm.
being in their own phones, stopped functioning out of survival mode. Even if we ain't got it, that's cool. We can not have it and sit and eat popcorn on the floor with candlelight, and it still be a good memory for a child. So yeah, we got to be more present as people, as humans, as parents, if we really want the next generation to not screw things up. It's like, to say it nicely.
So, and I 100% agree. The kids will mimic what they see and what they're exposed to.
Mhm.
That's the start. Of course, they have their own personality. But how do you tell a parent that I love social media? I want to spend 10 hours on that phone, even though it could harm my child. I want to, in my case, have bad financial habits, even though it could harm my child. Like, how does a parents balance that? Can they almost have a representative for their kids? Should they have a representative for their kids?
In terms of like a model who their kids could look after, or in terms of them being the model for their kids to look after?
I would say a model for their kids to potentially replicate.
That's fair. So, the irony is sometimes I find that I can't penalize parents because, like, many of us, that's what we saw,
Yeah.
right? Like, back in the day before social media existed, before these phones existed, because, back then it was payphones, it was landlines. You couldn't hide too far when the cord was stuck into the wall. Like, we were outside, but if you were in a family that didn't have much, right, they were working a lot. Like most of us that are latchkey kids, we grew up raising ourselves. Turn on the TV and then make sure it cool off before mama get home. Don't make no noise if somebody come knocking at the door. Like these are things that we trained ourselves with, if you think about it. So sometimes I'm like, parents, I don't fault you guys for just doing what you know and what you learned. But this is where I say, once you know better, you got to do better. So it's no longer like, oh, I'm gonna blame my parents because they worked all the time to provide for us and I raised myself and I had to take care of my siblings. Okay, that's fair and that's trauma. You're right. But now you a grown person. You have more knowledge. The extensive amount of like information that has come out from then compared to now, you know what being present in your child's life would do for their brain development, for their development period, like what they choose as careers later, how they turn into functional human beings later. Because you know that, you cannot choose to do opposite and then be surprised when it's like, why are they in a gang? Or why are they addicted to social media? Why do they have low self-esteem and now they're depressed? I mean, they didn't come out the womb with depression. What are we looking at? There's all these, I mean, then there's environmental factors that play in, but I look at parents and say, I'm not blaming you for what you grew up with, but I will blame you if you know better and don't do better. That's just the truth.
That's tough. And I observe they do act surprised sometimes. I'm like, how?
When you gotta rip that band-aid off real quick.
How?
Yeah.
I can't. That's not. I'll let you. They pay you for that, not me. So let's.
I'm like, don't be upset. I'm saying this with love, but I'm saying this with love because your baby is sitting in my chair, and you want me to fix them. And part of the times, you the problem. And I get it because life is happening to all of us. So I tell them with love, I may not be a parent yet, but my mentality is these kids are going to be wiping our butts when we get older. Do you want the kid that's like, oh, this is too much, I'm not doing this? Like, get somebody else to do it. Or the kids that are squaring up with adults right now because they don't have respect. They don't value the hierarchy of like outside in the community. People could snatch you up back in the day. And nowadays, if you get involved, you're either a Karen or, you know, it turns into something else. Kids out here committing grown-up crimes. It's just, yeah, they didn't raise themselves. We're raising them now. So where's the balance? He said, we supposed to talk about finances. You don't went a whole other direction with it. I'm so sorry.
But no, I think so. A part of what I do is legacy planning, and you can't just leave a pile of money to a child and expect things are going to work out, and that you quote unquote did your job. It's more complex than that. It's more like having a whole child. And I think that these things touch money because bailing out your child out of jail costs money. Putting them in a rehab facility costs money. Them living in your home, using your resources costs money. So these things do matter.
And them having assets when you do die and not knowing what to do with them or not valuing them, that costs money. And I only say this because from my cultural like lens, I know as an African, like it used to be the mindset that our parents would pour into us because we were their retirement plan when they get older. And then it's like, well, what happens when you have the kid that's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And now you don't have savings. You didn't put anything away for retirement. And you have a kid that's like, the house is ugly. I don't want to live there anymore. And they're selling it off and putting you in a home. And then what? So I don't think, like you said, parents are thinking about that there's a lot of losses, but there's certain things that are invaluable and priceless that it seems like as a society we don't value anymore because they take time. And in their head, time is money. So we'll give time to our employers who will easily replace us when the wind blows the wrong way, but not give that same time and investment to our kids who just through the nature of presence alone could be like, they could develop way beyond what we see.
I would say sitting Indian style, eating popcorn next to a candle. Sounds very peaceful.
It does. When you turn off all the outside noise and people telling you you're too big, you're too small, you're not dark enough, you're too dark. Yeah, it does a lot. You turn on TV and somebody's dying in every scene of the news. Very rarely do you see good stuff anymore.
Before we get into the business side of our interview, as business owners, I know you're anxious about whether you're doing the best thing with your money. You're not alone. I'm Randall Avery, owner of Diesel Wealth Management, and I specialize in simplifying wealth for those near retirement and business owners. Allow me and my firm to create a plan that fits your unique needs so you can actually enjoy the wealth that you've built. Don't wait. Click the request in the discovery call in the description below. Then you can enjoy the rest of this insightful interview.
Now let's transition to your business. Okay. I first always have to ask, why go into business? You can find an agency, you can work for another private practice. You decided to hang your shingle, go out on your own. Why would you do something so crazy?
Yeah. So it was two things. I think one of the first things that came to me was I wanted to create a safe space where everyone felt welcomed, but I wanted to do it in a way that I could show up and serve the community without getting in trouble. And I know I say that kind of loosely, but like I would be in other people's businesses, other people's workplaces. And if I wanted to do more, it always felt like there were consequences. And I'm like, why am I going to get punished for wanting to bring in candy or crayons to work with kids in a juvenile system? I mean, I get it because they can shank somebody with it, but then it also sucks because I can't serve them the way I want to. Or someone who doesn't take the insurances that allow more people to get the service. And here I am, a skilled individual, and can't help them. So it just felt like in every system, I was being met with roadblocks. And I was like, well, screw it. I'm going to do my own thing the way I want to do it. And then the other thing was the impact. Like I have two significant memories, but like one was being able to work with this youth that I was serving in a residential setting, and I just remember the transformation he experienced, not because of what was going on in the residential space, but because of the relationship that I was able to build with him as his therapist, being able to connect with his family. And it was like, girl, what he done did now. Where he at? Put him on the phone. I'm gonna get him. And it was like, even after he left the setting, to just know, like, okay, he's doing well. He hasn't gotten locked back up. That motivated me because I said, I want to create a space where it's not just how we talk about therapy, like, oh, you got to keep your back, like your distance, and you don't let him in. And it felt more like, oh no, you're part of the family. Now you act the fool, you will get put out. But with family, we tend to open up more deeply. We tend to show our vulnerabilities. We tend to trust and heal at a deeper, different level. So that was, I think, what motivated me to say, okay, I need to do my own thing my way because I genuinely believe that there are people that are going to be transformed by that approach.
Powerful. I went to a conference recently and they said part of maturing as a therapy is breaking down everything you learned in school to separate you from the client. Because that separation is where change could be missing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very like black and white. These are the rules you have to follow when it comes to just the mental health field as a whole. And we have rules for a reason. So that's one thing I've learned as a business owner. You know, the when I first started and was like, oh, we could just do whatever and la la la. That doesn't work. We have rules for a reason. But I think sometimes, especially with communities of color, the way that the books are written against us in a way, because we need to heal in community, in family, because that's how we support each other. Like even outside of therapy, I'll see certain communities where if somebody has died to gun violence, you see the community rally together. They got that family covered, their support. And in the therapy world or in the way we teach like mental health practitioners, we're taught don't go to the graduation, don't celebrate the wedding with them. Okay, they got, that cancer treatment that's going to help them stay alive. Like we can be happy for them, but we can't show it, or we can't cry with them. And it's like we're human. We're a human to human connection. So I like to say we need to start normalizing that healing is not just what was written in the books, and it's actually what's showing up in the space in our systems as we share that moment with each other.
I think that's powerful. I'm hoping more therapists will take that approach. And maybe something needs to be studied and rewritten on how some alternatives, call us the alt rules to engage.
You want to learn the alt methods, and but that's the thing. Like even as we're talking about business owners and business, entrepreneurship and why people have to create different businesses, systems. A lot of these academic systems are so rigid and like they're stuck that they will not change. That if we wanted to educate people on doing things differently, it would take another few generations. Kid you not, because the systems they're not always built for us, if that makes sense. And it sucks, but this is where I'd say like business owners, it's kind of our job when we're coming out and we have this vision of what we want to build to make sure that we're also doing the research and the learning behind it too. So we don't make the unnecessary mistakes because they don't teach us this in school.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that, we really don't know is when you go into business, all business is about relationships.
Facts.
Who you know to help guide you, who you know to help connect you, who you know to lean on, to cry on. How did you kind of develop your relationships when you went into business? Like, what was that like for you? Because that's not taught in any program.
No, it's not. Honestly, I just showed up. It felt like everywhere. It was crazy. It was like I remember it was torture, but I loved my clients. I still do. I felt like I worked 7 days a week, Sunday through Sunday. And like I live in a rural area, but I would see clients out of two different offices. So imagine sitting in Atlanta traffic, same day. You saw clients in the morning at one office, you sit in 2 hours worth of traffic to get to the next office, and then you see people back to back for 3, 4 hours, and you're like, and you still got a 2 hour drive home. And it's like, Lord, why am I doing this again? But relationships were key. So despite having an immense amount of like clients that I'm trying to serve, I still went to the meetings, the coalition meetings, the collaboratives, still went to community events. I used to tell people, I'm like, the comfy place will be the practice that is at the back to school event, handing out backpacks, giving out mental health resources. The number of times we have been at a community event, and one, we're the only private practice there, which is crazy to me. There's tons of private practices in the area, but at a community event, we'd be the only one. And we're there, and somebody will come up, a parent, like, "Oh, I didn't even know you guys are in the area." And then they start kind of talking about their kid, and we're like, "Okay, don't tell us too much because we ain't the therapist for them." But you could just tell, like, they needed to know something existed so that they had hope. And I'm like, if more of us came together and were present and had open relationships, communication with each other, not just for the purpose of referrals, but for the purpose of like, do I know my neighbor? Can I trust my neighbor? Because everybody ain't trustworthy despite having a license. Everybody ain't qualified. We done seen that with a few things that have popped up in the media recently, right? So it's kind of like, do you actually know this person? Have you met them? Can you attest for the kind of person they are? Because if I were going to send my family member to therapy, I want to know who they're going to talk to. You don't got to be my therapist, but can I trust that they are in good hands? So that community building piece, that relationship building piece, the networking piece, it needs to be authentic, and it takes work. Like if you want to be a business that sustains all of the economic shifts, you have to have the relationships, and honestly, they have to be authentic because people can tell when you're BSing.
When I went out my own, I had an image of what a financial planner needs to look like: suit and tie, extra sir, so use large words and be complicated. As I went into business, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. I realized just being authentic in yourself is the only real way to go. Yes, you'll lose some, but you'll also gain some. And the one that you gain are really for you. What was your journey on learning how to be authentic in this space when even a therapist, sometimes there's an image or something that we project out what a therapist should look like?
If I can be fully transparent, and this is for whoever sees this is something that I feel like I still struggle with because imposter syndrome is real and we are human. But I cut off the noise every now and then, and I consider that like a reset. So the two things that I find myself leaning into is one, when I'm getting really in my head and like I've been watching social media too much, and here's all these therapists that are influencers and they got a ton of followers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to this group too, knowing dang well that's not my specialty. I feel myself starting to come down, and I'm like, I lean into my community who knows me. And it's like, girl, no, you know you the boss. Like, Lisa, what you talking about? Did you forget how many certifications you got? Girl, stop playing with me. And sometimes we got to find people that we have in our corner who will speak life into you. Because as a human being, there's days that you just ain't got it. And that's okay. No one is perfect and no one is always on. So having people in your corner who will speak life into you when you feel like you don't have it. But then the other thing is, it's okay to unplug. I'm not saying go into like this deep dark depression and really like be alone and beat yourself up, but there's so much outside noise. Everybody a business coach selling something. Everybody got the best new service that's going to fix all of your problems. Everybody's the expert, right? With no background or whatever. Like there's so many places that you can look and find somebody that's doing it better, that's making more than you, that has dominated the whatever. But your destiny may look different than theirs. So my mentality is lean into what you were purposed to do, because that's where your success is going to come. And if you have to be intentional about turning down the noise, turn that shit off. If you got to lean into your community because you can't do it, have your code words that you use with your friends so that they know that they got you. Or have the ones that are in your business so much that they know they got you, even if you don't know that they got you. But things like that pull me out when I'm like, okay, how do I do this? How do I keep going? How do I be the next, therapy influencer with the time that I don't have and the sleep and rest that I want to get but can't seem to because I'm trying to do all the things to make it as a business owner. Because it's not just one. Like the service piece is just one small aspect of what running a business takes. And so many people, it seems like they crumble under that because they don't realize just how much you have to do. The investment that's not just financial.
So for my friend group, I am that person who asks a million questions.
Yay! Keep being that.
It's my business to make sure they're okay. But seriously, I think one thing that you mentioned is comparison. So in the finance world, we all compare numbers. That's what we do. Who has the biggest numbers? Who has this? And similar to the mental health space, we do compare, social media reach and all those different things. How did you learn how to run your race? Like, understand what's enough. We want more and we'll strategize and do more. But like, how do you stay in your lane and put those blindfolders on? Because those other influencers are loud, really loud.
Yes. It's when the way the algorithms work, they'll be in your face. I've lost hours like doom scrolling at 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, okay, team, this looks fun. Okay, team, this looks fun. Okay, can we do this? And then that's how I end up dancing on screen because it's like, I done see so many videos and I'll have more options of what I can do and like no energy to do them when it's time to shoot. But the reality is, I think the season of life that I'm in, what hit me was that I legit stopped caring. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm human and it still hits me when I've been on there too long and I start to notice that with myself. But what I said was, especially in the realm of social media, I just want to have fun. And part of the reason I say that is because if folks are watching what's happening in the world, it's one thing after another. It's like a gut punch after a gut punch. I can't fight for nothing, even if I think I can. But I would never get into the ring with Muhammad Ali or Holyfield. Like, you wouldn't see it. But that's literally what we are experiencing. We are in a boxing ring getting hit every which way. The economy, the wars, the race issues, like everything's hitting us. So in my head, I'm like, I just want people to laugh and have fun because at the end of the day, life probably sucks for you. There's some days that you're like, man, why am I up today? Right. And it's like, it'd be nice to just tune into something and just be able to laugh about it, not have to think about the sucky stuff. But I also know as a business owner, metrics matter. So in my head, when I'm doing things, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this for me because at this point, I'm wanting to have fun and reclaim my time and just wanting to experience things a little differently so that I don't get lost in the noise. But I also know as a business owner, because metrics matter and that's what helps drive the revenue to keep us open, I still have to look at, okay, well, how did this post perform? What does your audience want to see? Okay, this person had a much bigger, commentary on theirs. Is there a way that we can modify this to fit our brand? So I look at it with my team and I allow input because I know I'm just one lens. I might have been looking at a lot of things and I'm like, oh my gosh, it needs to be this way. But when I open it up to other perspective, it's like, no, Lisa, you could do this like this. Or, okay, Lisa, don't worry. Our audience is not the same. If we stay true to who we talk to, they're going to get what we need. So for business owners that are like social media and you're in there, you're trying to figure out, do I become, a social media influencer plus an entrepreneur plus a business owner plus a financial business major, because we got to do that as business owners too. I say slow down and honor where you're at. And then just look at the pieces that you can do that are within your capacity. Because no race is won literally overnight. Like, it takes time to get to where we're going. You've been in 10 years. I've been long too. I get it. Nothing comes overnight. And if they understood that, I think they'd give themselves a little bit more grace.
Yeah, I had to have an individual talk with myself and said, Randall, do you want to be an influencer or do you want to be a business owner? Pick your path. Because if you want to be an influencer, you have to be controversial. You have to be always on. You have to be the camera has to never turn off. Or do you want to run a business and service your clients. And I lean towards the service of the clients, but how can I use mediums like this to add that additional service versus just additional noise, I guess, you know?
No, that's fair. And I do have a belief that like the people that are meant to receive it are going to receive it.
Right.
Like I'm a firm believer in that, like that whole faded type of stuff, because I sometimes when I make content or even when I'm like talking to clients as they're calling us and coming in, I'm like, there's a reason why we cross paths in the season that you're in. You don't need to be with us forever, but the season of your life that you're in, you were supposed to meet the comfy place. If someone sees one of my videos, I'm like, my hope is that whatever it was that you needed in that moment, you got it. And if you never see me again, that's okay. But I feel like I fulfilled my calling because when I made that, I know what I needed, and someone else may be in that same space. So you ain't got to be no influencer. Like you said, make that moolah in the business. Serve your people.
Exactly. For your people. The metrics. I used to work in corporate finance, and my job was to send metrics to business owners. And one thing I noticed is that every business owner focuses on a different metric. What metrics do you focus on and why?
Ooh, I definitely agree that metrics are important. And I did not realize that until I was like years into my business. So for any business owner that's out there, like, oh my gosh, how do I do it? It is important. Is it work? Yes, but it is important. I want to say the ones that we look at is like how many clients have been served, because ideally, in order to, cover the expenses of the business that need to be covered, you also have to hit a certain number. So every therapist has like an expectation of how many people they need to see. Do we always hit that? No, but the idea is this is what keeps our lights on, not just for the business, but also to pay your bills. This is what keeps the lights on. So it's kind of like, what is your baseline in that sense? And then another thing that we look at is like in income earned, but also expenses. That's something that my accountant has been on my behind about. As a business owner, we don't always realize how much we spend to run the business. And every program has its bells and whistles. But before you know it, you'll be paying for 3 programs that do the same thing. And you'll be asking yourself, how? How did we get to this point? But that's what it feels like, because if you're not mindful of what you're spending and you think that you have the revenue coming in, you actually could end up like, is it bottom over? Like you could end up in the red. So I think being able to look at the number of how much are you actually bringing in revenue, and then wait, how much are you actually spending? Because at the end of the day, the net profit is really what's left to do the things as either as a business owner's profit or just to keep the business sustainable so you have savings to keep going. And I don't think many businesses, at least in the mental health space, were prepared for the changes that are happening, because so many have had to close. Between COVID till now, so many mental health practices have actually shut their doors, or they've sold, or they've like had to shut their doors just because it's no longer feasible.
Yeah, I definitely think I've hear that a lot. Client count or sessions seen. I've heard retention. All those different things are important. Do you value retention as far as the metrics that you focus on?
Yeah, it is something that we look at, because I'm like, the mentality is, if you have a therapist that can only see somebody 1 time or 2 times, it is an expense for the business, because we're spending in marketing, we're spending in ads, we're spending to get the client through the doors. And we don't want clients to think that, we're tallying each person to $1, but realistically, every business has to have something, right? Because this is how we track things. But if you have a therapist that can't get past 2 sessions with the client, that's a problem. Sometimes it can be fit. Sometimes it could be, therapist, maybe it's just not ready for the private practice space. But typically retention, it'll be between, 3 months or more. So you want to aim for 3 months or more. And that's just because on average, folks within the 90-day period, if they're going to like therapy pretty regularly, they're able to make some shifts. And with those shifts, then it's like, okay, do we want to continue? Do we want to stop? So retention kind of shows you how rapid turnover wise the money is being spent. And a therapist that can retain is a much better asset than one that's like, oh yeah, I drank water and I peed. I drank water and I peed. We don't need you peeing every 2 seconds, because then it's like, we still got to give you more water, and that costs money. So
what about client lifetime value? My space, we say, okay, we can spend a lot on marketing for a client because the lifetime value is so important. How do you think about a client lifetime value in the mental health space?
I want to say I look at it more like a relationship piece, and I think this is partly why, at least in our practice, we value the family component because no client really should be with you forever, but there are clients who value mental health enough that they will be with you for years. And like I have some that I love and adore that they've been with me for years, and then some that have been with me for years, but they've been off and on. And all of the options are acceptable. But the lifetime value is really like how long is that client with you? The longer that they stay with you, yes, they're going to bring more revenue and stuff into the practice. So people want to be able to keep that. But we also have this belief that, like, because they're coming into our family, they don't have to stay forever because they're never really kicked out. You know, we want to watch them grow. We want to celebrate their wins. We want to support them in the losses and also let them know like you have the ability to come back. And I think that's what helps support the overall lifetime value compared to where someone that it's like, I've just seen this person every week for 5, 6 years. How? In my head, I'm like, what y'all talking about for 5, 6 years every week? I don't even have the stamina for that. Or someone that it's like, okay, I saw you for 30 days and we met 4 times, and it's like, okay, now you're not coming back anymore. You ghost us. Neither one of those options are sufficient. The 5 year client, stable revenue for the practice. That's great. But also, it's like, what impact and what's the quality that that client then receives? Because that's quite a long time. What work is being done? 30 days, maybe 4 sessions if you're seeing them weekly. What's the impact? How much work could you really do in that small amount of time? Not much. So somewhere in that happy medium in between is good because that's revenue earned, but also healthy relationship built and maintained.
Yeah, I do think results is probably the best marketing guide for my business, definitely. But I think in most businesses, if people are coming out healthier, if they're having a great experience and they're saying, hey, talk to so and so, they did well for me,
Yeah.
versus well, we're doing this together still, that to me, those are two different referral types. Uh,
Yes. Word of mouth will always be the most powerful form of referral. And it's whether it's coming from a client or even somebody that is referring to you as a community partner. When they know you, it's like that like no trust factor. When they like you, they know you, they trust you. People are more willing to take the risk. And when you do right by them, they are more willing to come back and stay and send more your way. So that is a big factor in like retention.
so we talk about, profitability, but when profit happens, especially if it's above a little bit your lifestyle, you have to reinvest back into your business. What
Hmm.
have you seen work as far as if I put money back in this into my business, I'll receive a decent return on our investment or ROI?
I think the perfect example I have for like the comfy place that our practice is investing in trainings for some of my folks.
Mm.
Um, because what happened was it, initially started with me being trained in all the bells and whistles. And I mean, I still have it and I still use it with folks, but I also can't do it by myself. So in a way, when we had a little extra money, it was like, okay, who's been here, who wants to stay here? How can I pour back into the people that work for me so that we can serve more people? So being able to get them trained in the higher approaches, the more intensive modalities, open up the door so now more people can experience EMDR. More people can experience that stuff, and it doesn't have to be just stuck at one person. So I think that for me is a great example of how I've reinvested. Other things is honestly just like I said, systems and I don't know if this would be considered a reinvestment or not, but like the marketing piece, you know how that's like you're always putting money back into the business so it continues to show up, so your systems are working, so that you get the right people in the right places. So I know that there's the goal to earn profit as an owner, but I also think, at least in the mental health space, because of the varied vast between private pay versus insurance, a lot of times for those of us that accept insurance, we're not seeing as big a profit margin as the owner, but our business may still be sustainable. But that's because we're putting it back into running the everydays, making sure our people are paid well and taken care of, getting things like certain benefits in the door if we have the finances to do it. That all pays off in the long run because happy people, happy clients, happy business.
It's so hard to take that, I guess, that initial chunk of your margins. You're like, man, I'm expecting this, but it's like, I spend a little bit more here. I want to make my space comfortable. When you think about culture, you said, you bringing in therapists. Um, you want to have an experience for the people who see your therapist in a certain way. So, how do you develop a certain culture, a certain ethos in your practice to, I guess, execute the business the way you want to?
Um, I think one is people fit
Yeah.
because I'm a firm believer in vibes and energy. And it's like, there's certain folks that just their energy, you could feel it when it's not in sync with yours. And it's like, I don't even want to be around you right now. So I can imagine what clients are sensing. But I've also, like when we have people that have the right vibe, the right energy, and like, I walk into the office and I'm like, oh my gosh, who am I going to bother today? Like they got way more clients than me, but I'm looking at whose office I'm gonna pop into and start breakdancing or something. They're like, Lisa, you need friends. I know. That's why I'm in here. So for me, culture, it's not just like can they perform and execute, because there are people that they are great at meeting the metrics and meeting the expectation, but they really are not the people side of it, the people person side. Like they might be more isolated. They don't want to bond with everyone. And my mentality is because I'm building a family unit where it really feels like people can catch their breath, finally exhale, not feel like they're constantly underweight. It's this idea of like, do you like the people that you're around? Is the environment, like you said, from the ambiance to how the furniture's set to how big or small the spaces are? Is it more intimate? Is it bigger with more room for energy to move around? Do you got the yoga mat in case you want to somatically lay down or something? All of those things matter. So I know I have one that like we joke, it's not just did you bring the good snacks and give them the waters in the fridge or the sodas and stuff, and more like do they really feel like they're valuable, not just because yes they're bringing revenue to the team, but because you care, because they actually matter, because they are a human being who deserves respect, who wants the opportunity. And that level of value and family and community is what I try to embody and then like pour into them. And I love when I can see the dynamics of the different offices that we have. Like this team bonds this way. And then when I go to another office, I see this team bonds this way. And I'm like, oh, you guys are so different, but it's so cute. Here I am with my camera trying to catch everyone on social media when I come like, yay. So that would be the idea of culture to me, especially in this current climate. I don't think people are only leaving because of money. I think people are just tired and they really want to know, like, if I'm choosing this place, is it choosing me back? Or is it just like next great thing that comes along? Okay, you out.
I think I love your explanation of like every location can have its own culture. You're allowed to thrive because that's what those people at that location needs.
Mm-hmm.
And give it to them and let them thrive and yeah, make someplace enjoyable. Work can be enjoyable. I hopefully, right?
Yes, when you have those coworkers that you love and you might be ragging on the boss or you're going through the traumas together, it can be really fun. And like I'm a goofball, so I'm like I have one that like I think she went on vacation or something and I went in her office and I took like a video of me just sitting in the chair and I had my team draw a stick figure of her in the other chair because like this is how I would bother her if she was around. And it's something that like we can all laugh at, but everybody don't like their coworkers. So when you have a space where you're like, we can go to each other's baby showers, go to each other's weddings, like celebrate passing exams, and like it's not just one person fueling it, it's everybody actually interested in it. It feels different. It feels different. And the work we do as therapists is already pretty heavy. So to be honest, to have that like, oh, I could just check in with somebody. Like I'm not in this by myself, it makes a world of difference.
I think that's a parallel to, what they teach you not to do in therapy school is similar to what they teach you not to do in the corporate environment. Because back in the day, you used to go to your boss's home and have dinner with them.
Yeah.
That was more common and more commonplace than it is today. I think we've gone away for things. I understand why: efficiency, profits, and capitalism. But when you have, I believe, like a practice of not just like with 1,000 employees, you can still recreate those intimate moments.
It is the hard part, like even from the corporate side, is like as the levels increase, it's almost like they become more disconnected.
Yes.
And I've had to, I wouldn't say like I'm battling that like in my practice because we're still smaller compared to others, but it's something that like I notice and I'm intentional about and how I communicate the message of culture, the message of expectation. It's like, yeah, if you send me a message, it's going to take me a little bit because there's a lot of things that I got to knock out. But to still know that, okay, Lisa is still a person and she still does care and she is going to check on us, that kind of stuff feels different compared to sometimes what I see in the hierarchical level is like they go further up, so they have all the managers that handle the problems that right underneath them, and then everyone at the top starts to feel more disconnected. It becomes disjointed. So now top's making decisions that affect the lower level folks, and they don't understand what the lower level folks are doing or how it works. And even if they used to be at that level, now that they're up top, they're like, oh, we got our own issues up here that we got to deal with. You don't get it. So I think it's important. And if honestly, if we went back to like the good old days, if they existed, if more corporations said we can still make a profit and still humanize the work that we're doing, we'd probably have healthier workers. We'd probably have more successful businesses. And we would actually be helping our communities the way we say we are. Because profit has to be made, but if you ain't got nobody to work, you can't make no profit.
So I remember times where, we had mass layoffs and we went to the office. They said the XYZ department was eliminated and we had to be okay with it. Told us at 8 a.m., go back to your desk and I want you to complete your job. I'm like, there's no reconciliation. I knew this person. We had lunch together. Y'all just want me to continue. And it's like ingrained in you. And I think that, to be honest, I think that break in our morality that we put ourselves through is going to hurt us in other areas of our life. There's no free lunch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, we're seeing that now with like I know they've been talking about this a lot through the research and just different influencers and stuff that they're speaking about the layoffs of Black women in the corporate space. Tons of, BIPOC folks, Black women in particular, being laid off at higher rates than other races, other genders. And then just the fact that like a lot of these companies, like you said, you go into work and then some are sending you an email telling you that everybody's gone.
Yep.
Some are having the bigger meetings. Some don't even give you anything. No, severance package. It's just you out. And then they're bringing in AI to do your job. It's a slap in the face. And I think sometimes this is why I say, like, I don't want to say the world is doomed, but we're either going to be forced to autocorrect, as in like our hand will be forced, or it's going to take something shifting things, because realistically, every person that is terminated because they found a more efficient way to do the job makes the company profit, but leaves another person like homeless, leaves them, struggling to find something. And people buy the services that these companies are giving us. And if people don't got the money to buy the service, the company ain't got nobody to sell to. And it's like and it continues, then we need to cut more people and get, something else to like automate the job. And it's like, it still boils down to, we're creating the very issues that are leading to us having to do these things. And it's just a cycle that keeps perpetuating. So as you mentioned about AI before, I think sometimes people look at the bottom line and they're like, who can I expend? And it's not easy. Like there are some folks that they genuinely care about the people in their practice, and like the idea of somebody's name being a line item, it's a hard pill to swallow, right? Do I terminate this department or do I close the business as a whole? Okay, I got to let these people go so that these other people can have a job. As a leader, it is a very tough decision to sit with. And I know that there's business owners out there who are just like, the folks who work for me will never understand the amount of stress that as the owner of the business, I've had to encounter to make sure that they can still feed their family. And I get it. So this is why I'm like, if people had more transparent, honest conversations as human to human, not saying you got to spill it all, but just remember that we're dealing with people, not line items. Even the people that we serve, they're not line items. They're customers who can make or break our business if they stop, patronizing us. That it may shift some of this disconnect that we're starting to see.
Yeah, I'm just going to agree. And I think it started off with the outsourcing our services to other countries. So we all have a cell phone, but we don't really know any cell phone makers.
That's fair. Yeah,
complete
that is terrible.
disconnect. We all are wearing clothes. We don't know too many seamstress out there, right? So
Yeah.
little stuff like that, I think, creates that perpetual disconnect. So you mentioned that, profit, people have to pay themselves. As a business owner, how do you think about paying yourself? I've seen people do a percent of revenue, fixed payment, fluctuate based off if I'm going on vacation or not. I've seen it all. How do you think about compensation as a business owner?
My accountant would hate me for this, but I'm gonna be very honest because I think people need to hear the truth. I don't always pay myself as the business owner, and it's not good that that is the case. And I don't say that because like, oh, the business is not well or anything, but it's the idea of like I prioritize the people and making sure that there's enough in savings, that all the expenses are paid. And this is the reality that small business owners, in particular corporations, may not have that issue, right? Because they have investors, they have things they could tap into. They get bailed out a lot quicker than a small business owner who's like, it's three or four of us. And if I try to pay you, I got to tap into my savings. But then if I'm tapping into my savings, how do I take care of my stuff? So I find that for me, the accountants are like, pick what it's going to be. Are you paying yourself a salary? Are you paying yourself, something similar? So the way I have it structured is I'm paid a certain number of hours every, pay period, and that's how I get my pay. And if it turns out that it's a week where folks decided they all want to be on vacation at the same time and the revenue ain't hitting the same, then I can't pay myself. And it's like, all right, we gotta manage. It gets a little tighter. But I say this because the people who do the work don't always see that because they like the flexibility, the autonomy. They like, we want the benefits, we want all these things. And even in corporations, we say these are the things we evaluate when we look at the compensation package. But sometimes we also have to understand why then the business has all these expectations. Because if we do not meet that, then something else in another space has to get cut or doesn't get taken care of. So the recommendation has been like, pay myself the same way I pay my folks because I'm an employee.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's the reality of it all. Bills need to be paid. Employees need to be paid, unless that's the fastest thing they'll leave if you miss a paycheck on them. And it's just there may not be enough money to transfer, and that's the reality of being a business owner, especially when you have employees or contractors. Especially, I think that's real. Now, how do you think about building wealth? So you're doing all this work, a lot of sacrifices. How do you think about becoming independently wealthy from your business? Like, yes, you want the business to grow, you're going to reinvest in that, but service-based businesses do not receive a high multiple when they decide to sell. So how do you think about becoming independently wealthy from your business?
I think for me, it's been investing in other things that are not solely attached to the business. And
Mm,
that's where I'd say, like, what other skill sets do I have? So, like the speaking, the consulting, like tapping into some of those skills that I have as a clinician, the trainings that I have as like a trauma trained person, and bringing those into other settings that are not just one-to-one therapy. Part of that is because it gives me a bit of a break from therapy because
yeah.
sitting in back-to-back sections, like that wears you down quick, especially if you're dealing with heavy stuff. But so it gives me a nice break so that I can mentally be ready for when I'm back in the therapy space. But then it allows me to serve in a different capacity, more people. So when I'm doing a workshop or I'm doing a training or, a talk and I get to see people ask questions and engage in the activities, like it's exciting for me, but it's also another way that revenue can be built in so that I'm not solely dependent on the business. And in terms of like generating wealth, I want to say that that's still a very new area for me because, like you mentioned, some of your background being like this talk of legacy, like legacy wealth. Like how do people pass down wealth versus passing down debt and passing down things that like their kids cannot use? I'm first generation American. My parents were immigrants. Every dime that they had and spent was put into making sure that we could, make it. But it was so interesting to see that like all the struggling that they were doing here in the US and even like as I saw it, they were able to build houses and buy land in Nigeria. Now, granted, are we gonna do anything with that? Who knows? Because we don't live there. We don't go there as often. But it was like to see that in their mind, passing down wealth meant I'm going to get land, I'm going to get a home, and I'm going to pass it down to my kids versus what I see non-BIPOC folks do, which is like, oh, we invested in the stock market and it made money and I'm passing down stocks and bonds to my kids. I 100% believe that there is not a gender gap, a race gap in what we think is wealth and how we pass it down. So for me, I can't say that my child is going to want to become a therapist and want to own this business. So it very well may be something that I can't pass down to them. But I do want to say that I can, at minimum, while I still have the energy and the gusto to build out a trust that at least puts some money away to where now, if they go to school, they ain't got to take out no debt. Mm-hmm. And that at least gives them a bit of a leg up. So if I don't have a house to pass down, I at least saved them from one burden that I had to experience because my parents didn't have that opportunity.
I love it. So this show is called Practice Prosperity, and a prosperous practice means different things to different folks. What does a prosperous business mean to you?
It means healthy and thriving. It means fulfilling your purpose, serving fully. And honestly, I think that's it. Yeah. Because I think people can sometimes say if I make, 7 figures, 8 figures, that's how I know I have a prosperous business. But all money ain't good money. And the more money you make, and Biggie said that, the more money we make, the more problems we have. And so that's how I see it. It's like, yeah, you want to make money in the business, but sometimes the impact that you make with the business could actually be bigger than the money you make. And that can actually reach further. So I look at it as like being able to pursue your passion and making an actual impact and difference in your community would make me feel like we're prosperous. Having revenue and being able to clear it and we're not in the red and we have savings for a business, a good number of months so we have something to lean on, in my head is prosperous. Having a team that loves what they do and they show up authentically for their clients, in my head is prosperous. Because if I'm happy and they're happy and our people that we serve are happy and we're making a difference, the money will actually come on its own.
100% agree. Now, if people are listening to this, whether they're family, whether they're, their parents and worried about their kids, like what is the best way for them to learn about you and the services that you provide?
Yeah, you guys can check out our website, thecomfyplacellc.com. So it's thecomfyplacellc.com. We are on social media as well. On Instagram, we're So Comfy Therapy, and you will see me dancing on there. And then on Facebook, we are The Comfy Place. And then on LinkedIn, my name, Lisa Ibekwe. So you can always reach out. And I tell folks, if you ever have a question, even if it's not looking for therapy services or it's not even mental health related, feel free to ask. Because I think sometimes people are not sure where to start and maybe they're contemplating things and they're like, I don't know what to do. Just reach out. And even if I don't know it, I'm happy to connect you to somebody that does.
And all her description and links will be in the description below. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to check out those dance moves as soon as this call is over with.
Don't judge me. I was having fun.
Thank you very much for joining us, Lisa Ibekwe. I think what you shared about AI affecting kids, financial burdens people face, and how that affects their kids, I don't think a lot of people have an open, honest discussion about that. And I love sharing about your business, specifically about how you create a culture, how you create a place where people want to go. So hopefully that inspires people to find places where they feel appreciated, but also create environments that people want to thrive and live their lives at work. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
You built a successful practice, but behind the scenes, it still feels messy. Cash flow surprises, unclear projections, and no real system separating your business and your personal wealth. That's the problem. Most advisors just focus on investments, but what you actually need is clarity. That's where I come in. With Diesel Practice Clarity, we organize your numbers, build forward-looking projections, and create a system that turns income into predictable wealth. Not just more revenue, but a plan that actually shows you how to keep what you have earned. If you're ready to stop guessing and start building wealth, let's talk.